Good day to you, family. This is Coach Jay coming back to you, trying to drop some more informational knowledge on finances to free our people up, free my black people up, so that we can move into the on the level of creating wealth, getting to the point where we're no longer the consumer culture, but we have the mindset of being the investor culture. We want to be in the position to be able to build wealth for generations to come. Generations to come. Once again, this is a talented 10th financial coach Jay, trying to drop a little bit of information to you so that we can continue to walk together as a family. And we've been using this tool of the Roth IRA. Once again, Senator Roth introduced this bill to Congress, and it was legislated and passed in 1997, so that you can do after-tax dollars for whatever money you make. You can, just like you go and buy groceries and all that, and then pay taxes on the groceries down, you can put this money into your future self and your future generations, where you're paying taxes already on the money that you earned. And once that money goes in and it stays in there and it grows tax-free, penalty-free, uh, uh, growth-free, compound interest, dividends, all that been paid. Once you go to take it out at 59 and a half, general rule of thumb, you can pull that money out, and guess what? You're never taxed on that money again. Even if you were to pass on, whoever you have as your beneficiaries, they won't have to pay taxes on this money either. Wow. We got to participate in this. The reason why I started with this is because, like I said in a couple of videos before, that we can take this money now, and now we can load up our grandchildren or great grandchildren's 529. That's the college investment plan that's also tax-free money, and we can transfer money from their 529 over into their Roth IRA and continue the cycle of wealth building. And it gets greater with each generation, because the earlier you start with a higher amount for the next generation, that money starts growing right away, versus we're trying to put in daily cost averaging, meaning every month we're systematically putting this money. If we can throw $35,000 in as soon as they get a social security number and we start them up into 529, that money starts compounding right away. Let's talk about compounding interest for a minute. Einstein said that compound interest or growth is the eighth greatest wonder of the world. Why? Because none of us really understand it. So if you're drawing, this is how it works. It's called the rule of 72. 72 divided by whatever you think your money is going to grow by. And we've been using 10% a year of rate of return, ROR, rate of return each year systematically, because that's what index funds have been doing for about the last 50, 60 years. And we know sometimes the market goes way up and then it goes way down, but we're talking about the average. So we're just using 10%, even though it's actually been doing pretty much about almost 12%. But we're going to just use 10%. We're not going to worry about inflation and all that now. We just want to throw some numbers at you, because once you start seeing these numbers, you cannot erase these numbers out of your head. It catches on like wildfire, and you got to catch this. So we want to, once again, get to the point where we're no longer exchanging our time for money. That means we're going to get to a certain level where we don't have to work anymore, and our money is now earning our living. Have we ever heard anyone talk about that in our community, the black community? No, most of us are waiting on Social Security. Social Security is going to be it's going to be icing on the cake for us, because we're going to have this money compounded for us, tax-free. Even Social Security right now is taxed. I think they're trying to change it up. But this year, 2024, I don't know what they're going to do. We don't know what they're going to do. We don't know what the next administration is going to do, whoever it is in office. Okay. I have no idea what they're going to do, what they're going to try to present. But everybody's trying to get the vote, so they're trying to talk good to you now until they get in there, and then they'll do something else. History doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. Okay, go figure that one out. So let's get to a point where this Roth IRA, we're not taxed on it anymore. We already been taxed on whatever money we're making now, and whatever, because it's called after-tax contributions. We can put up to $7,000 right now, and if you're under the age of 50, if you're above the age of 50, you can put an additional, it's called a catch-up contribution, which is $1,000 extra a year. So you can actually, if you're 50 and above, you can put up to the amount of $8,000. Once again, you got to have earned income at least until up to that 7,000 or 8,000, depending on your age bracket that you contribute for that year. And it's indexed for inflation. They just came out with that, so it's going to be indexed for inflation with the catch-up contribution once you get 50 and above. And as long as you're earning income, you can contribute to, anyone can contribute to a Roth IRA. Once again, I suggest that you use an index fund, because index funds have low fees, expense fees. So you're talking about, using Fidelity or using a Charles Schwab or using a Vanguard, my champion. I have the two of the three. I have a Vanguard and I have Fidelity. I don't have Charles Schwab, but my son, he has that. And I picked out an index fund for him when I found out that he was investing into just a regular mutual fund, and they were doing 1% and 2% and 3%. And I start showing these numbers how when you start using 1%, 2%, and 3% of expense ratio, and you just like, okay, well, that's not much. But when you add it up, and we're going to do it in a minute, when you add it up over the long haul, you're paying their salary. So watch this. So last time I used, and I had to correct myself, I don't do any kind of editing, so if I make a mistake and I catch it, I'm going to come back and tell you. I am not perfect, but I was using we were using that married couple, and they had invested over that 25-year period from age 40 to age 65. They were investing into their Roth IRA. If you guys go back and look at that video, and they were doing just for the 25 years, because they didn't know about this until they ran into Coach J, and Coach J said, hey, you need to invest in yourself. You will have a future, most likely. If not, maybe somebody else can benefit from you investing in yourself. So when you pass away, there's some change left on the table instead of people doing a GoFundMe for you. Okay, so this couple, they started investing at the age of 40, and they said, hey, we're going to max out, and we're going to act like they never get a pay raise. We're going to act like they never go up on their contributions, $7,000. We're going to say it remains that way because Congress said we're not going to go up. We know it will, because it's indexed for inflation, and most likely they'll go up. Last year they went up $500 more that you can contribute. It was $6,500 in 2023 that you can contribute per person on earned income, and this year now it's $7,000 each. So this couple said, okay, we're going to start, and Coach J directed them to asked them to suggest it to them, because he's not a financial advisor or a planner or an attorney. So he just suggested that you go do your research. Look at an index fund that's charging the expense ratio of 0.03 or 0.04 or 0.05 or maybe zero. Like Coach J said last time, FZROX, he's got a fund in that, and it's zero expense ratio right now. It's a fairly new fund under Fidelity. It's a Fidelity's total stock market index fund, FZROX. That's the ticker. Go check it out if you want to. Just check it out, do your research, or pick whatever you want. If you want to, you put your money over in a managed mutual fund where somebody's doing this, they got the same funds that you have, but you're paying more to them. So last time, Coach J, I said, hey, let's do a comparison analysis. So we looked at the numbers. This couple had, over that time period of 25 years, they amassed $1,300,000, and we know was some change, but we just rounded off. And I said, okay, now let's compare it. And I think I used 1% fees expense ratio versus 0.01. Let's do it like this. And I messed it up. I said 100,000, 130,000. That's 10%. Coach J was off. But let's use 3% expense ratio on that $1.3 million. You know what it comes up to? If you use 3% that your managed mutual fund manager is getting, you're giving them every year that you have 1.3% in there, you're going to give your manager every year, you're paying their salary. You're one person. Just think if he got 10 people, how much it'll be. You're giving them $39,000, and they're not doing any better than a mutual fund that is just indexed for, it's tracking the S&P index, or it's tracking the S&P 500 or the total stock market index fund. So you got 3% you're paying to this manager. It's not doing anything, basically. you're paying them $39,000 a year. Versus coming over here to Vanguard, okay, and let's say we're in a VTSAX, that's Vanguard Total Stock Mark Vanguard Total Stock Market Index Fund. It's about 3%. I'm sorry, excuse me, 0.03%. And guess what? You'll be paying on that expense ratio. Take a guess. $390 a year for this index fund, because you got to pay some brokerage company because they're managing all this money. And we know Vanguard and Fidelity and Charles Schwab, they're top. They manage all kinds of mutual funds for so many people, index funds. You can get whatever you want. But I like Vanguard because the shareholders are the owners. That's why they can make their expense fees lower, and they can now just let it ride the market. All right. So once again, the correction was if you got a managed mutual fund and they're getting 3% expense ratio on you every year, and you got $1.3 million, you're giving them $39,000. Just think if he's got 10 clients that he said, okay, I'm only going to manage people who have 1.3 million and above, and he's still getting 3%. He gets 3% on all of those 10 people. You just gave him, $390,000 a year for him to not do any better than what a S&P 500 index fund or total stock market index fund at 0.03%, $390 a year that you're giving up. See how that can really stop the maximizing the growth on your money. So I want to make that correction. So I hope you got that. Now let's use this couple again. This couple, I went ahead and I said, okay, this couple now they're at that point where they're at $1,300,000. Now we're gonna say this couple's they're gonna start wanting to pull money off, because you want to get to a level where you can start pulling money off. So this couple, I went and did the math on it. We're going to drop them down to a very conservative fund in the index. Maybe have a little bit of bonds in there to kind of balance it out. So, when the market fluctuates, the bonds kind of balance out what equities are doing, the stocks are doing. So we're going to drop down. We're going to assume a 7% rate of return, ROR, on their money for the next 30 years. They want to start drawing out a 4% rule of thumb, $85,000 a year. They're pulling out of their money. And guess what? After 30 years, assuming just a 7%, that's very low, that's very conservative, 7% rate of return, this couple from the age of 65 to 95, they have pulled off $2.5 million, even though they only had 1.3 million in there. And then when they get to the age of 95, guess what? That money never runs out. That money is still got their principal in there of 1.3 million to pass on to the next generations, and they can continue to cycle. Everybody can continue to cycle. This is what we call black wealth, because we're no longer going to be the consumer culture. We're going to be now the investor culture. We're going to now say, hey, I need to lay aside something now so that I can help the next generations, because as a talented 10th, as Dr. W.B. Du Bois was talking about, we're going back and we're training. We're leaving nuggets for the next generations to come, or the people to come, so that they can stand on our shoulders. But we're going to teach them. We're going to teach them how to fish, so we don't have to keep feeding them. We can now allow them to give them principles like you're doing here today, and showing you that now you can do this for yourself. And it doesn't take much. The earlier you get started, the less that you have to do, and stay consistent. We're going to stay consistent. We're not going to say, okay, I'm going to start and stop. No, things happen in life and you got to do what you got to do, but you want to start back up quickly if you have to take a pause and not pull out the money. So just wanted to drop this into your spirit, because we're talking about building wealth for black generations to come, where we no longer have to depend on anyone else to take care of us. We don't have to become slaves to the credit card because we're debt free. We'll talk about that soon. We'll talk about how you can use some of these principles that was laid out in a Secure Act 2.0 to now go and ask your employer to because you're paying off your student loan debt, that they can now invest in you through the matching fund from the Secure Act 2.0 of 2022. We'll talk about it soon. Talk to you later, family.